Okay, I think we're back. So yeah, I think we're back now, guys. Sorry about that. There seems to be some kind of problem with YouTube tonight. It doesn't seem to want to actually let me keep my stream connected. So let me see if I can get into the chat on the other stream where I think everyone is still hanging out. Yep, the YouTube's being funny tonight, guys. So let me just post on the other stream just to get everyone over here. Okay, so I can see people starting to come back over. So yes, I don't know what happened then. YouTube basically just went. My channel was showing up as not even being there. So I think there's some kind of weird glitch going on with YouTube. But we are back now. So yeah, I think I'm also streaming live again over on Facebook. Let me check. That killed the entire stream for me. So sorry about that, guys. I had to end the Facebook stream because the YouTube stream was not working properly. So yes, I think we're back in business now. So as I was saying, there's a really cool event this week up in Birmingham. Loads of cool brands. I know Carl Longbottom is going to be there. I know that LT Custom Guitars is going to be there. A bunch of other really cool brands. So if you're in the Birmingham vicinity, Saturday and Sunday, go check it out. It's going to be a really, really fun weekend. So I can see now over on YouTube, you guys have got me back. Just got you back again, and fine now. That's good to know. I'm glad the stream is now back up and running. Let me know how the quality is. I think my internet connection seems to be running okay, but YouTube seems to be the problem. So let me know how that is looking for you guys. It looks fine this end, but I do think that YouTube is where the issue lies tonight. Hopefully that's the end of the problems though. But anyway, yes, so how is everyone? I hope everyone is doing good. Now that we're over the little technical hitch, Carl Longbottom, Lake Lewis, I'm restringing guitars for the Birmingham show. It's going to be a really fun weekend. I'm going to be there all weekend as well, doing some demos with a company called Cool Amplification, but I'm going to be jumping around everywhere else too, because I know like a ton of my friends are working for the other builders, and you know, I'm friends with a bunch of the brands that are going to be there, so it's going to be a really, really fun, really kind of you know, big geek out kind of session. So yeah, it should be a fun 2 days. If anyone is in that area and they can get there, they should definitely pop down. The Jess, hope Marty McFly makes it back. Yeah, me too, because I was in the middle of answering Marty's question, so hopefully he can get back in here. Hopefully he sees that I've relaunched the stream now. The other stream is completely dead now, so hopefully we're on to something here. So yes, if anyone sees him, let him know where we are. Okay, so today I've got some new pedals to open up and try out, and I've had some questions over on Instagram to talk about, and also, yeah, as usual, if there's anything you guys want to talk about as well, throw the questions, remarks, comments, abuse, whatever you want, throw it in the chat. So today I'm going to show you guys some pedals that I've actually had, regrettably, in my to-do list for a long time, and they're all from my friends at Teisco. So I did a demo, probably going back just at the tail end of last year, maybe early this year, of Tysco's boost pedal. So that's currently live on my channel, but the guys at Teisco sent me the rest of their pedal range, so we've actually got 5 pedals to look at on this stream and check out. They make some really cool retro style stuff. Teisco were a brand, not a band, in the sort of 60s and 70s. They used to make a lot of sort of affordable guitars at that point that have kind of become like retro collector gems, and recently the brand has resurfaced and released a bunch of really cool pedals. So the boost pedal was really fun. I had way more fun with it than I thought I would ever have with a boost pedal, because it's, you know, it's a boost. But the rest of the range, we've got Overdrive. Overdrive's always good. We always like Overdrive. fuzz. Fuzz is, you know, always fun. I love fuzz. Delay. Delay's always cool. And a distortion. And as you can see, I haven't even opened these yet. They're still in the cellophane wrap, so we're going to open them today as well. And then this pedal, which I'm going to open, but I'm probably not going to set up on the stream because I think it's probably going to be quite complicated. This is a really cool concept that they're doing. Obviously, the pedal says interface. So what this actually is you can use it as a USB interface to record your guitars with your laptop or your PC. But it's also a guitar pedal, and you can use it to control plugins inside your DAW. So if you're someone who gigs with a laptop, you could use this to control those plugins as effects. Now, like I said, that's probably going to take a bit of setting up, so I'm not going to set that one up on the stream, but we'll take a look at it first anyway. Let's open this one up and see what it looks like. I'm just going to put my guitar down to free up both my hands. So let's crack these open and then we'll have a listen to some of the sounds. I have tried some of these pedals at 42 Gear Street last year, which is how I know the guys from Teisco. And yeah, you're right, if you're in the UK, it's uncomfortably similar to the name Teisco. The first time I saw the brand, I did actually think that was the name. For anyone watching outside of the UK, Teisco is a UK chain of supermarkets, which, you are right, does look a lot like Teisco, but this has got the I in it, T-E-I-S-C-O. So the interface pedal, let's see what this thing's all about. So it comes with a USB cable. Obviously it's an interface, it should do. It comes with two USB cables. One is USB-C on both sides and one is regular USB to USB-C. And here's the pedal. So these things are really robust as well. If you've ever checked any of these out in person, they are built so well. So they've got these really cool sort of Japanese inspired designs on them. They're always really interesting looking. They never just kind of, you know, brand their pedals up plainly. So this one, as I said, it can control, I think it can control two different plugins. So it's got two levels and two gains. And there's an A and a B in and an A and a B out. So I think we can kind of use this as maybe like to trigger two different signals. Obviously I've not read the manual, so I'm just assuming there. But you can also use this, because it's got a monitor output, you could use this as a recording interface as well. So let's say you were traveling, had your laptop, plug a USB cable in here, guitar in one side, and then to your monitor speakers or your headphones, and then you could record via your DAW as well. Really, really cool for integrating digital stuff into a real kind of analog signal chain as well. And I'm pretty sure that's what the book is going to tell us as well. So yeah, it kind of tells you to get set up with your DAW, and it allows you to, yeah, basically add your DAW to your live rig, which is pretty cool. So these are all going to be appearing on the channel as full-length videos at some point. Obviously there's not really anything I can show you with this one in a hurry today, because I don't know exactly how to set it up just yet. But that's the first one. But the rest of them we can hear, which is the good news. So there are 4 other ones which I don't need to connect to my PC. And I can't even get the box to go back on, so I'm not going to. Okay. So we've got distortion, delay, fuzz, and overdrive. So let's start with a fuzz. So what have we got going on here? Marty McFly is back. That's always good. Someone needs to make a Teisco value pedal. The cover would be hilarious. That would be quite funny, actually. I think it would probably be quite popular. Amazon did pedals about 2 years ago. I don't know if they're still available. I did buy one just for a video, and it's actually just a New X pedal, but there's basically just been rebadged by Amazon. So New X actually make the pedals, but Amazon just put the branding on them. It was pretty good. It was sort of a $23 tube screamer It didn't sound as bad as you would imagine, considering it was an Amazon Basics guitar pedal, which is the last kind of source that you'd expect to see pedals come from. I can see Adam Steele is over there on Facebook watching. Is that an interface I see before me? It is, Adam. Yes, there is an interface. Teisco, every little helps. So for anyone who, again, outside the UK, Tesco, the supermarket, have a tagline, every little helps, which Adam is now applying to Teisco. Where Orange seemed to fall down with a teleport was they didn't make a proper low latency driver, so it was a laggy mess. Hope Teisco have sorted that. I remember the Orange teleport. I never tried one, but I do remember it. And so the Tysco Fuzz, this is pretty plain. That's actually, for Teisco, that's actually incredibly plain. It's just all white. Now, the first thing that's piqued my interest is there's an Octave Switch. Now, I'm always raving about how much I love Octave Fuzz. I don't know if that's octave up or octave down, but there's an Octave Switch, so I'm instantly interested there. So that's definitely going to be one we're going to hear. I'm just filling my studio up full of boxes now. So these, I think these are going to be very fun. If the boost is anything to go by, these are going to give us some really fun tones. And I tried them all very briefly at 42 Gear Street last year, and I was impressed with what I heard. So I have very high hopes for actually doing a deep dive into what they can do as well. So this one is the Overdrive. So let's see what we've got here. Halls, I loved an unboxing vid. And the Jess, they made it back and absolutely would love that. Yeah, it would be good. I think if anyone's got a contact at Tesco, they should suggest that, because I think it would be hilarious and maybe even quite good. Maybe they'd pull it off. Philippe is here as well. Hey, how's it going? House of Maximus. I missed the load then. Yeah, I know. To be honest, I think I was talking for about 2 minutes after the stream died as well. So I think I missed a lot too. So the Overdrive. Now we're back in the funky branding. You can't... Oh, there we go. The autofocus does work on the live stream, which is good. So that's really cool. You can see all their designs are a little bit quirky, which is quite nice. They don't sort of do anything too plain, but obviously, as I said, this one, they've gone very plain for that. But for this one, we've got the design back. So overdrive, treble bass, level, and gain. And a kick switch in the middle. I wonder what the kick switch does. Always good. I always like overdrive. Delay. Now, the boxes for the delay and the distortion are noticeably bigger than the overdrive and the fuzz. So if my memory serves me correct, these are bigger pedals. Let's find out. I'm pretty sure they're bigger anyway. Does anyone have a preference over what they want to hear first as well? Once I've got them all open, anyone got any preference over which they'd like to hear first? Fuzz, overdrive, distortion, or delay? You can go through them in any order you guys want. And yes, the pedals are getting bigger. And very well packaged. As well as these things being rock solid, they're really well packaged. Adam Steele just got off tour with Monuments. Brown's rig was mental. But the only pedal in there was the Ground Effects Grey Skull, an analog low octave. Yeah, Monuments are a tech metal band from the UK. I think I'm using the correct subgenre here. I may be wrong. Metal is my strong point. But the guy, Brown, that Adam's referring to over on Facebook is John Brown from the band Monuments. He's a good friend of ours. I've appeared in some videos with him from Gear Street, and he is a down-picking machine. So if you like really technical, sort of time signature, crazy metal, go check his band out. But Adam's just been on a mini tour with them, and I know he was using a Soldano of some sort on that tour. I can't remember what he paired it with though. There was another amp in the rig as well. So the delay. So here's what we've got for the delay. And now the autofocus chooses not to work. You can't trust technology at the best of times, can you? There you go. So we're sticking with slightly more vibrant designs here. So this actually has a modulation built in as well. So you've got level, feedback and time, and then there's an entire modulation section. So it's got a depth and a rate. We've got a mono delay out and a direct out. I'm not sure what the difference between the two is. And then we've got an input and a fast and slow modulation. I'm guessing it's going to be something slightly chorusy, something a little bit kind of shimmery to go on the tail end of the delay. So that's going to be fun. And we've got one more, and then we can start plugging stuff in. Amped whales, even in bass here, these pedals are cracking. Yeah, they are really cool. I've only really gotten to sit down fully with the boost one, which I really like, but now we're going to test out the rest of them as well. Tech metal. Yeah, I'm probably using the wrong subgenre there. The easy way to answer that question would be to say gent, but some people get offended by that word, and as someone who loves the 80s, I don't really know what gent means. I just know it's a word that people say a lot. So I don't want to call them a gent band in case I'm way off the mark. They're a heavy band that play really technical music and use crazy time signatures. Brown hates gent, but that's it basically. A Soldano 30 and a Mesa rectifier preamp with a Synergy power amp. So there's the rig. I bet that sounded absolutely insane. And the thing with John Brown's sound, if you've ever heard the guy play, he doesn't use as much gain as you think he uses. He's just got such an insane pick attack. We did a video together looking at a distortion pedal from Walrus Audio, and he actually played a harmony guitar with gold foil pickups, and he just sounded like John Brown. He made a 60s voiced guitar sound like, you know, something that he would play in a metal band. So yeah, really cool. Oh, and it was routed through 2 helixes. Well, I guess the helixes were the effects in the chain as well. So the amps being the core tone and then the helixes doing all the other stuff. Sounds like a really cool, cool rig though. And the final one, got the distortion. So this one is also not autofocusing. There we go. So it's a 2-sided distortion pedal, level, gain, tone and presence, and we've also got a more control. So I'm going to take a punt and say this foot switch here is for more. So if this isn't enough, this will give you some more. It's got a muscle switch and a tight switch. So those are obviously going to be different kind of EQ voicings there as well. So 4 different pedals: overdrive, fuzz, distortion, and delay. What do you guys want to hear first? So we'll go through them all quickly, but let me know which one you want me to plug in first. And we'll do that. In the meantime, I'm just going to make sure my guitar is on and working. Okay, so today's guitar, I haven't played this on a stream properly. I briefly had it on a stream a few weeks ago, but it didn't. It wasn't the star and roll. And this is a really cool guitar. I kind of grew up playing Les Pauls, and then I went off them for a long time, and then this thing kind of came onto my radar. This is a Stanford Guitars Crossroad Marquee. Now, the first thing you might notice is it's a Les Paul, and I'm just kind of really easily moving it around. And usually these would be heavy guitars. This thing is semi-hollow. It's got a center block and hollow wings. So it's kind of like an ES335, but it looks like a Les Paul. So this kind of got me back into the single cut thing. And what really appealed to me was this. That neck cut. That is unlike any other neck joint I've ever seen on any guitar other than a Nick Huber, because Nick Huber does his neck joints like that as well. So it's really cool because it just allows you that little bit of extra kind of leeway to get right up at the top of the neck. What sets this apart from a regular Les Paul style guitar is the fact that it's a flat top as well. So usually a Les Paul would be a carved top. This is a flat top. The neck isn't as angled. Actually, it's not angled at all like a regular Les Paul would be. Usually the neck on a Les Paul would tilt back slightly because of the carved top. But this is actually a straight neck, like a telly or a Strat. And we've got dot inlays and no binding. I didn't like it visually at first, but then it kind of grew on me. It's got a very different sort of sound. It is a Les Paul, but it doesn't sound exactly like a Les Paul. It's got a little bit of a twist to it. Controversial opinion, I love djent. I don't even really know what it is. I just know that it's a style of music that I don't understand. That's all I know about djent. It's very heavy and very technical, and yeah, that's about all I know. Shout out to A Strings for the viewers in South Wales. They've got a Black Star amps even in tomorrow night. I think they still have some tickets available. That's really cool. A Strings is a music store that's fairly local to me in South Wales. They regularly have different events. I know they do a lot of stuff with Black Star. Do you know if there's a special guest? Because I'm not sure if there is at that one. But if there is, let me know who it is. It sounds really cool. Our drummer in our pub covers band has a Teisco Value drummer t-shirt. Cracks me up every time he wears it to a gig. The question there though, Marty, is your drummer a Teisco Value drummer? Does he behave like a Teisco Value drummer, or is he a bit more of a premium drummer? I reckon you can make any guitar sound djent with enough compression and noise gating. It's all about sounding percussive. It probably is. I wouldn't even know where to start playing that kind of thing. It's way over my head. Speaking of interesting setups, someday it would be cool to learn more about rack-mounted effects and why some artists prefer that. That is a good question. I guess really why someone would use a rack is, I mean, there's not really a benefit as such, other than, you know, obviously you have to kind of buy individual units which specialize in a certain thing. Now, Adam has actually replied to me over there saying the Helixes were more heavy amps, clean tones and effects. Ended up with 6 channels of guitar off one player. So the way that someone like John Brown is using the Helix, he's got the rack Helix there, which is what I've got in the studio as well, is he's using it as like extra stuff. So he's switching to it for clean amps. Now, you will see a lot of people who will use dedicated rack units for things. This was especially big in the 80s, so people might have like a delay rack unit and then a chorus rack or a reverb rack. The whole kind of rack styling very much stayed in the 80s. It went out of fashion pretty quickly, but then it's kind of coming back in recent years. Like I know like John May has started taking some rack gear on tour. He's using a rack Kemper for some things. I don't know if he's using it in his current tour. And he's also using a rack reverb that he's been using for years as well. So I think the rack is coming back. It's not very practical though, because obviously you have to have these big units when, you know, you could just have something this size that does the same job. I like racks for the nostalgic factor, but why someone would prefer, I guess it's just maybe there's a specific sound a rack unit can do. I know players who tour with racks and they love them. So I guess it's just maybe that style just works for you. I think if you're using a rack unit, you need a good MIDI system to obviously control where each rack unit gets routed in and out of the signal chain. They can be quite complex and they can become quite bulky. But yeah, I guess it's just if there's a sound in that unit that some people really like, then that's probably it. The special guest is Toby Leigh. From what I've seen, he's a bit of a blues prodigy. Look forward to hearing him. Yeah, he's a great player. Toby's a really cool player. He's a very young guy, but he really kind of understands blues playing. So yeah, that'll be a really cool event. To be fair, our drummer's the most professional player in the band, which makes the Teisco t-shirt even more ironic. Well, that's always good then. At least the drummer exceeds expectations, which is something a lot of bands don't find. So it's nice that you have a drummer that does exceed those expectations. Harley, I like your t-shirt. Rock on. Thank you very much, Harley. I'm glad you like the t-shirt. Adam's over here now as well. So Hot Pole Studios jumped over to YouTube. On the tour, a rack setup was super useful as I could plug in a couple of amp cables and go, ready to rock. Full MIDI switched and synchronized, completely clean stage, quick setup. Yeah, that's one advantage to it. Obviously, it's much easier than having a big pedal board on stage. If you're a band that need to get on and off stage very quick, it can really make a big difference, because a lot of touring bands would use wireless systems, especially on big stages. And if you've got a rack mounted wireless system, you can essentially set your entire rig up without going on stage. So you could just walk on stage and start playing. So it does kind of keep the stage nice and clean as well. So yeah, there is that big benefit too. The rack stuff can be really good, but like I said, it can be bulky, but you know, it's all just about finding what works for your rig. I find rack mounted super confusing, but if anyone could spend time with me figuring out, I might prefer it. I think it just depends on what you need as well. You know, if you're looking for a portable rig, racks are definitely not the way to go. But if you don't mind, you know, taking up loads of space, whether this is on stage or at home, then rack units may be a good thing. The price of rack units fluctuates a lot as well. So I remember, like, maybe 2 years ago, maybe even a bit more, 4 years ago, the rack units were kind of at an all-time low, and now they're slowly starting to come back into fashion. So you are seeing the prices creep up. So it may be a market that might be worth keeping an eye on, just because things fluctuate like crazy anyway, like with everything in the guitar world. The price of rack units could go from like 20 quid one day to like £1,000 the next. We know how this game works. So yeah, rack units, it could be fun. I've not really dived too far into the rack rabbit hole myself though. So I'm just going to plug something in now. So I'm going to go for, what do I want to start with? I'm going to start with the Tysco Distortion, I think. Let's start with this nice purple thing here. So this is a two-sided distortion, like I said, level gain, tone and presence, and a more switch with tight and muscle. So we're going to find out what all these buttons do and see how it sounds. Rack mount is basically just pedals, but in a thinner, wider format that goes right next to the amp. Keeps it clean, but harder to tweak mid-gig. Yeah, there is that as well. I think with rack gear, though, the kind of bands that often use rack gear don't tend to tweak it too much. I always think, I mean, I know I always put rack gear as being very 80s because I love the 80s. To me, rack gear is that kind of thing. Like, you sort of have your set dialed in, and then you just kind of show up and plug in and play. Whereas pedal players are a little bit more fiddly. We like to move things a lot more. Pedals are more tactile, I think, whereas racks, you just kind of set it and forget about it, I think. The Rockman is a cracking rig and fits in your pocket. Just ask Def Leppard. It's the sound of the entire Hysteria album. Yeah, that thing is actually really cool. The Tom Scholz Rockman. It was actually just designed as a headphone amp, but it kind of found its way into many big albums. It's sort of the epitome of 80s compressed chorus clean. I really, really want one, but the problem is they've recently shot up in price, and I kind of wish I bought one a few years ago while they were really cheap. And at the moment they're like £400, and they're not worth that, but they are cool. So if I can find one for like 100 quid, I will 100% buy it. So Tysco Distortion, and my tuner's on. That's just everything at midnight, and that actually sounds pretty good. I am starting to find that modern pedals just sound good out the box. I'm really starting to find that I'm not struggling to dial in tones with things that I try out these days. Every company just seems to have got their 12 o'clock tone nailed. So if you pick up a pedal and just set everything straight up at midnight and it sounds good, you can probably imagine that that's going to be a pretty good pedal. Yeah, so that's just everything at midnight. The more switch was on when I first turned that on. Kind of just adds a bit more gain. I turned the mic down there before I finished speaking. yeah, so first impressions are actually really good. I really like the way that sounds out the box. I think this is going to be a really fun one to demo. What do you think of Gretch guitars? I'm tempted by the Anderton's limited edition double cut in either shell pink or Daphne blue, both with gold hardware. They look great for around £400. I am a big fan of Gretch. I love Gretch guitars. I own a Gretch guitar, which is a guitar that is not so much these days, but was my kind of go-to gigging guitar for a long time when I was still playing Les Paul style guitars a lot. I love it. I've got a lot of time for Gretch. Yeah, I've always had good response to Gretch demos on the channel as well. So every Gretch that I've loaned from the company has always been great as well. The double cut, I actually did a demo on at the start of the year, or maybe it was the tail end of last year. It's the same one that you're looking at, but not in the limited edition colours. The demo probably went up like just before Christmas. The G5222, I think the number was. Gretch have always got these really long sort of product numbers, but that's essentially the double cut jet style guitar. They're great, and for that price point as well. The one that I demoed was around the same price. Yeah, you can't fault it. It's the cable management and sends and returns and such I've got confused about. Likewise, my pedal setup isn't very complex. Yeah, you can fall into a rabbit hole with cable management for definite. I mean, obviously that's the good thing with a rack, is you don't tend to swap things out all the time. So, I mean, good cable management is always nice because we like things to be neat. But if you do have the rack and the back of the rack is just chaos, you're probably not going to be switching rack units in and out too much, so it's not as much of a problem. Keep an eye out at the guitar show if you go, and you never know. Yeah, I will be there. I'm going to be there for both days. But I've just seen your follow-up that sadly you're not going. The kitchen is eating your bank account. There's nothing that should ever stop you going to a guitar show, though. Marty looking nice is nice, but ultimately you want things that work well for how you'd like to play. Yeah, you are right. I mean, Gretch is a very versatile anyway, so they are really good guitars. You can do a lot with them. The Gretch Pickups are kind of, I always think of them as like a cross between like a humbucker and a telly style pickup, because they technically are humbuckers, but they're very low output. So you're not going to get, you know, super high gain metal tones from them. But if you want a bit of clarity and a nice punchy sort of humbucker-ish tone, Gretch is a winner every time. So many modern pedals can do MIDI switching. Controllers like the Gig Rig or the Boss ES switches, racks and pedals are closer than ever these days. Yeah, and I mean, to be honest, with the functionality of what pedals can do, you take something like the Walrus Audio R1. I mean, this has got 9 different reverb presets in there that you can access from the pedal, and it expands to 128 if you go to MIDI. So yeah, this is essentially a rack unit now you can put on your pedal board. You know, we've got things like the Helix. The Helix is a all-encompassing rack unit that can do everything, but in pedal form. So yeah, there's tons of these things around now. I think it's a good era for guitar gear right now. I really like this Tysco Distortion, actually. Let's see what the tight switch does. This is kind of more overdrivey than distortion, I think. I'm going to crank the gain and see what happens there. Okay, yeah, now it's distortion. that distortion is pure 70s. Yeah, it is actually. It's a very kind of 70s distortion. If it's very noisy as well. If I make it quite bright, then we'll definitely get into a 70s vibe with it, I think. Yeah, it's definitely got a very 70s kind of edge to it, I think. That's with the muscle and tight switches on as well. I'm not sure exactly what they're doing without reading the manual, but they're doing something to the low end. Yeah, really cool. That's a great sounding pedal. There's gonna be a lot of fun tones to be had with that one, I think. I bet ZZ Top stuff would sound great on it. Yeah, you're probably right actually. Low gain, keep the more switch off. I reckon we can get a pretty convincing kind of ZZ Top vibe. Kind of does the Zeppelin thing well too. That's the gain on that is literally on like 2, and I've got the more side enabled just to give it a bit of a push. So yeah, I'm a big fan of that actually. That's going to be a really fun pedal. It definitely doesn't act as a what I think a distortion is. I think over the years my idea of distortion has kind of become based on the sound of the Boss DS1. So I always think distortion is something I don't like because it's a bit too harsh. That to me just kind of functions as a really good overdrive. So maybe I wouldn't refer to it as distortion as such, but I mean that's what it says on the tin. On that note, let's see what the overdrive sounds like. So this is their overdrive. Now I've heard, obviously I've not tested this one, but I've heard from a friend of mine that this is a great transparent overdrive. There's that buzzword that we all love, transparent. So I don't know what this is going to sound like. Let's find out. This is the, what I like to call the 12 o'clock tone. No sound is always a good start, isn't it, when you plug in a new pedal? So I don't know why there's no sound coming from that. Let's see if we can get to the bottom of that. Maybe it's my cable. Right, so my cable works, but it was loose. Let's try again. That I like instantly. That's with everything at 12 o'clock with a little volume boost. That to me is a bit more like a 60s kind of vibe. Kind of reminds me of like a blues breaker. That sort of 60s-ish Eric Clapton-y Marshall kind of thing. It's got a kick switch, so let's see what the kick switch does. Whatever it does is subtle, other than cause a popping sound when you switch between the sides, which is not good. So let's tweak it up a bit and see what it does. Just making sure this stream is still going over there on Facebook, because it did just freeze for me again. So let me know if you guys are having any stream problems, because mine did just freeze for a second. Nice, that's a very, very 60s vibe. I like that one a lot, actually. That's with the gain 3/4 the way up. So, I mean, you know, it's not super high gain, but there's enough gain there to do classic rock with. Yeah, it definitely does have a cream sort of tone, I think. It kind of gets you in that sort of tonal ballpark, doesn't it? It's definitely a 60s inspired thing there. Like I said, I don't really know what the kick control does. Seems quite subtle. I'm going to max the gain now just because. JTM 45 in a box. Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe that. It's got that kind of vibe, isn't it? Interestingly, I thought this one actually sounded a little bit blues breakery in the lower settings, but this one is actually more of that kind of thing. Even with the gain completely dimed, it never goes into crazy saturation. There's just enough break up there to keep you happy. And it seems quite responsive. So if you're kind of digging in or rolling back, it sort of cleans up or breaks up more accordingly. Yeah, that's a really cool one. Very, very kind of JTM-y. Next, Fuzz. Everyone loves Fuzz. Even people who say they don't like Fuzz secretly like Fuzz, I think. So this one, I don't know if this is based on any particular existing Fuzz circuit. I'm going to keep it on midnight. Fuzz, from my experience, is usually pretty loud when you turn it on, so there may be a volume jump here. So straight away, that is very much a 60s kind of spluttery fuzz. I've got a lot of time for that. It's almost like synthy as well. The gain is actually really low on that as well. That was with the tone control turned up. I'm going to dime the gain now. That's like a proper, like, everything's going to blow up kind of fuzz. This, as I said, piqued my interest because it has an octave switch as well. I'm going to assume this is an octave up, so let's hit the switch and find out. That's a really prominent octave. That's pretty much not even fuzz when you're kind of really rolling that back and playing high up. That's very cool. I wasn't expecting that. I didn't even know this had an octave, to be honest, so I'm actually really surprised by that one. I reckon that's based on the Maestro FZ1 with the germanium transistors. Do you know what? I'm going to go on Tysco's website and see. Tysco Fuzz. Let's have a look. Maybe it is. So this is the Tysco website. The Tysco Fuzz is a classic silicon fuzz, so not germanium, with a switchable upper octave that takes inspiration from a furry 70s predecessor, unlocking serine lead lines, gnarly textures, synth-like overtones, and every shade in between. So that's pretty cool. So it's a 70s voiced sort of octave fuzz. That's going to be a lot of fun. That's my kind of fuzz. I like that. Yeah, that's really fun. I kind of wish there was a bit more control with the fuzz sound when you're using it with the octave. The fuzz kind of gets lost to that upper octave thing, especially with the gain dimed. It's very much just the octave there, but still a cool sound though. That is really fun. You said that you think it sounds like the Fox fuzz. I wouldn't be surprised, because that's obviously a very popular 70s fuzz. So I wouldn't be surprised if that's pretty much what it was based on. Burkay is here. Hey Burkay, how's it going? The Jess, that is sexy. Yeah, it's a really cool sounding fuzz. The silicon version is harsher. Yeah, this is that kind of fuzz that does have the potential to be quite harsh. Obviously the tone control helps because you can kind of tame it. But here's how it sounds with the tone and the gain downed, but with the octave off. It's spluttery, you can hear that, that's really cool. Even with the tone control on the guitar, it doesn't seem to do anything because the fuzz is so intense. So that's really interesting, actually. Yeah, that's really cool. That's very glitchy. It's not for people who like a subtle fuzz, if such a thing exists. Hey, Krenar, how's it going? How are you getting on with the Huber? I saw the that Nick Huber Krautster arrived for you. How's that treating you so far? That's a lovely colour as well, by the way. They mentioned fur. The Fox Fuzz had a case covered in velvet-like material and an octave up, and that was also based on a Maestro. Well, yeah, I guess the Maestro was kind of the original, really, wasn't it? As far as fuzz goes, it's one of the ones that, you know, kind of started the whole thing off. The Octave Fuzz is nice. I kind of like how it's a glitchy octave. Yeah, that's a fun side to an Octave Fuzz. They can get quite glitchy, which is cool. It can be quite a fun sound. I gravitate more towards non-glitchy Octave Fuzz for when I use Octave Fuzz in a band setting, but for playing at home I love it when it just gets a bit crazy. To me, the glitch is quite hard to control at stage volume because obviously the louder you are, the more that glitch is prominent, but yeah, at home it's just so much fun. That pedal is Instant Blue Orchid. Let's find out. I guess I need to diamond again for that, so I'm going to do that straight away. It kind of does that glitchy thing where it almost makes, if you play two notes at the same time, it makes them sound out of tune. Yeah, that's definitely not for the faint-hearted. That's a really fun sounding fuzz. So we've got one more. Last one, the delay. The delay with some type of modulation in there. I'm really looking forward to having a deep dive into these pedals, actually. They sound like they're going to be a lot of fun. So this delay, I'm going to take a stab and say it's... I don't need to take a stab. I was going to say I'm going to take a stab and say this is an analog delay. As you heard there, it is an analog delay because it did that feedback loop thing. That's my favorite thing to do with with a sort of an analog style delay. I could sit there and do that for hours. Right, let's dial in some subtle tones now. Let's actually figure out what the intended sound of this thing is. Does that slapback thing really nice. And there's the modulation. That's an interesting modulation sound. I'm not sure how useful that sound is, but it's interesting. I don't think that's a setting I'll be using too much, but it's quite fun. This is a much weirder pedal than I anticipated it being. I actually thought it was going to be a little bit more straightforward, like kind of like a regular sort of analog delay, but apparently this thing's a little bit wackier than what it makes out. As weird as that sounds as well, I've actually got this set really subtly. The feedback is on like 2, the modulation rate is on 2, the modulation depth is on like just over halfway, and the time is about halfway up. So I'm not even pushing this thing that hard, and it's already going crazy. Okay, so that was weirder than I thought it was going to be. I don't know how many usable sounds are in that. For me personally, that's not the sort of sound that I would usually lean into. Quite fun, but yeah, I don't know how much I'd use that in a day-to-day context, especially some of those kind of... I mean, what the hell is that? All I did there was strum a chord. So, setting-wise, that's on the slow modulation. The rate is like at 10 o'clock. The depth is at 2 o'clock. The feedback is like really low, that's like 9 o'clock. And the time is like 11 o'clock. So again, not extreme settings there. And every time you play something, it acts differently. This is like... Sometimes it goes up, sometimes it goes down. Yeah, I don't know. I'll be honest. I don't know if I'm sold on this thing. What if I turn the level down? It just does the same weird thing but quieter. Okay, I'm just going to turn it up full then. Everything up full. Time, level. I'm not going to turn the feedback up full because that'll oscillate. Okay, now we're getting weird. There we go. I mean, I don't really know what else I can say about that. That's basically nothing like I thought it was going to be. I was genuinely expecting some kind of cool 60s echo type thing. And yeah, I mean, that's interesting. That's not the pedal I thought it was going to be, I'll be honest. I did genuinely think that was going to be something a little bit subtler. That slapback is what I call toilet tone. Sounds just like those old rockabilly records where they recorded guitar in the bathroom to get a delay. Yeah, it does have that kind of tiled room kind of sound. To be honest, those were the only usable sounds in there, really, from my first run through there, was with the time really, really low. Those kind of slightly slapbacky kind of sounds. Other than that, I kind of didn't get much else out of that. I didn't really get a delay as such. So yeah, interesting. It's certainly responsive to tweaking. It is responsive to tweaking. In fact, some of the weird things you heard, I wasn't even tweaking. It was just doing that on its own. Is it meant to do that? I don't know. Interesting. I don't know what it says on the website about that though. I'm going to find out. So the delay is this thing. So it celebrates everything beloved about analog delays, dark warm repeats, and the ability to cascade your signal into oblivion. It certainly did that quite well. With up to 600 milliseconds of delay, a rich modulation section, and a direct out for the ultimate tone chasers who want to run wet and dry rigs. That being the keyword right there. Experimental analog delay. So yeah, that was definitely an interesting one. Give me one of these any day when it comes to analog delays. I'm yet to find an analog delay that surpasses the Boss DM2. Sorry Tysco, that one isn't doing it. That will make for an interesting video though. Just expect the demo for that to be a bit weird, I think. It sounds like R2-D2 having a breakdown, and it also sounds like Whale Song. It does, yeah, and now here's Freebird. I mean, you could play Freebird with that, I think. doesn't quite sound like Freebird though. But yeah, you could do it in theory. Tom Morello would love that. I think he would. I think that would be right up Tom Morello's street. I'll stick with my real echo for actual delay. I don't blame you. I don't think I'll be doing too much delay work with this thing either. It's fun though. It's good if you want some cool slapback sounds or some crazy stuff. But yeah, maybe it's me. I can't get a usable delay sound out of that. But fun. No, please stop. I'm sorry. That's what happens when you request Freebird. If you ever request Freebird, you have to deal with the consequences of requesting it, which is someone playing it. As much as I love Freebird, it is one of those songs that, you know, people always shout for. Definitely has a few last settings on the keyboard, so yeah, definitely. Intentionally or by design, who knows? But yeah, that'll be one to watch. I think that's going to be an interesting video. So, Teisco pedals aside, I think the 4 that I test drove there sounded pretty good actually. The delay was good in some settings, but the 3 drives, that fuzz was really cool. I really enjoyed that. The overdrive, that was a lot of fun, and I really like the distortion as well, which is that one. And yeah, like I said earlier, these things are really well built. They're actually quite heavy. So if you ever get the chance to sort of feel one up close, they do feel really robust. I wouldn't have any kind of hesitation in taking that out and taking it to a gig and throwing it around on stage. It would definitely hold up. So I had a question over on Instagram that I wanted to address. I asked online what things people wanted to talk about today, and someone asked me the question of how having others to practice and jam with as you learn versus not having others impacts your learning and progress. And I think this is a really, really interesting question, and maybe some of you guys in the chat will have a view on this as well. So when most of us start playing, we always start on our own. We sit in our bedrooms, we learn a few riffs, you know, we do the usual I'm a new guitarist thing. And don't mind me, I'm just going to plug an overdrive pedal in case I need to do some playing, because I don't fancy my chances of playing anything riff based with that delay still plugged in. Yeah, so most of us will, you know, we'll kind of start out and we'll learn in our bedrooms and we'll play riffs and we'll play songs. I actually think having other musicians around you is a really, really good way to develop. Now, for me personally, it is probably one of the things that benefited me the most was playing with and jamming with other musicians. Not even necessarily just guitar players. I mean, if you're learning guitar, it doesn't matter what level you're at, you can always learn something by sitting down with another player. And maybe some of you guys, I know Jared will definitely have strong feelings on this one because he also comes from a band background like me. If you play with other musicians, you can learn a lot. So if you sit down and play with another guitar player, whether you can play 3 chords or whether you're already a great player, you can learn something. And to be honest, that's something that I still benefit from today. I mean, I've been playing guitar for over 20 years now, and I honestly think the times I learn the most are when I get to be in a room with other really inspiring players. And it doesn't matter what their perceived ability level is. I always hate the term, you know, someone's a good guitar player. I don't like that term because every guitar player is different. So there's not really a way to kind of say you're good and you're not good. I just think everyone's kind of on this journey and everyone kind of learns and applies things at different paces and in their own ways. The times I learn the most are when I get to sit down with people like Jamie Humphries, for instance. And, you know, Jamie's a good friend of mine. The guy's played with Jeff Beck, he's played with Richie Kotzen, he's played with Brian May. How can you spend 10 minutes in a room with him and not learn something? Those moments, to me, are the key moments that kind of make me think about my playing, and I think, okay, there's something here I can take away, because this person has learned something that I've never learned, or they've got an approach that I've never considered. And I think this is true regardless of who you play with. So if I play with a great bass player, I'm listening to what they're doing. And I think, you know, what is this guy doing? What is he doing that the other 10 bass players I've played with this week haven't done? Maybe it's a really good drummer, makes you think differently about rhythm. So I do think having other musicians around makes you really kind of grow. I mean, even just when I was younger, just sitting down with one of my friends, I remember sitting down with him and we both knew how to play, you know, like kind of a 12-bar blues. And that was pretty much all we knew. And it was what we did with that I think really brought both of us on, was that we would sit there just for hours, basically just learning how to jam. And we would both play that at the same time. I don't even think we were going through the 12-bar blues. I think we were just playing the A, and then we were just kind of taking in turns to play pentatonic stuff over the top. But it was having the other person there to bounce ideas off that really brought me along, because I'm listening to him thinking, what notes is he playing? How is he phrasing those notes? What is he doing with his vibrato? What is he doing with his string bends? So yeah, I definitely think, I mean, I don't want to say that not playing with other musicians won't bring you on, because that's not true. You can become a perfectly talented, adept guitar player and never speak to another musician. It's completely normal, you know, and you can do it any way you want. But personally, I do think getting to sit down with other musicians is huge. If you get the chance, even if it's just with another guitar player that knows the same things as you, sit down with them, bounce those ideas off each other, because they may have a different way of applying something that you already know. But in seeing them apply it, make you think something slightly different about it. So yeah, I knew Jared would have a strong opinion on that. For me, if you don't jam with people, you become quite a sterile player, almost robotic. Jamming makes you learn how to adapt and improvise. My best education was the local jam night. Always, always, always seek out people who are a little different in style to jam with. You definitely learn from each other. I agree with the adapting and improvising thing. I agree with that so much. Whenever I tell people, students, or just anyone who asks me about, I get asked a lot about the whole playing live thing and what it's like to play live. And I always say to people, you'll never, when you play live, you'll never be in a situation where you're so reliant on other people to know their stuff. So you have to kind of develop this trust with the musicians you play with, but you also have to be really aware of what they're doing, because the music, once you're in that moment, once you're playing the song isn't going to wait. So if you mess up, the drummer's not going to wait for you. The drummer's not going to stop and start the song again. You need to catch up. You need to improvise and adapt to that problem. But likewise, if your drummer slows down, you shouldn't, you might, but you shouldn't keep playing at the same tempo. You should adapt to what's going on around you. So being a good musician is not necessarily always about just having the best skill. It's about being a good listener and a good adapter. So it's someone who can go into a situation and say, okay, what's happening and what do I need to do to keep this together? And I think if you have a band of people who are all really self-aware of themselves, but also aware of each other, that's a good band. You can learn a lot from being in those situations. So yeah, play with other musicians, guitar players you can learn tips and tricks from. You can learn things about rhythm and timing from bass players. You know, and drummers, you can learn groove, you can learn all sorts of stuff. So yeah, the more musicians you can play with, the better. I always like to try and sit down with as many people, even if it's for 5 minutes, just to see what I can learn, because there's always something you can steal from another guitar player. So yeah, I think that was a really great question actually, and as people watch this live stream retrospectively, I'd be really interested to find out what people think. So if you're not in the chat right now and you're watching this after the live, throw your opinion on playing with other musicians down in the comments as well, because I think it's a really, really beneficial thing. Sometimes it's nice to just have that kind of boost from another player as well. You know, just someone you can kind of sit down with and trade ideas with or trade licks with. And you might not even be trying to develop, but you will learn something. And I still find that to this day, when I get to sit down with any of my friends and play guitar, there's always something to learn. Whether it's something that, you know, they kind of get from me or I get from them, someone comes away knowing something new from all that, which I think is really, really interesting. I even find it, you know, when I used to teach guitar full time, I would learn from students. And as the teacher, that's not something you would usually think is the case, because obviously the teacher is the one teaching the student. But, you know, having played guitar for 20 years, when I would see a student who is 13 nail their first guitar solo, it makes me think differently about it, because I'm thinking, well, I've thought about this for 20 years. You're thinking about it from a completely different angle to me. And it makes you kind of relearn things that you might have forgot as well. So there's always learning to be done. You can always learn, and you can always kind of develop ideas from other people as well. I learned some stuff from my students. It's all one big cycle. That's what I love about it. You're always learning. Yeah, well, Jared literally just said what I said as I was saying it as well. So he's also in the education world, and yeah, you learn stuff from other people. Whether you're the one teaching those people or whether you're on the receiving end of the information, it works both ways. As a teacher, you can still learn. So yeah, I think as a musician, the more we expose ourselves to and the more people and situations, the better we get at it. And for me, playing live, that's one of the biggest things. I have bands that I regularly play with that, you know, we know each other inside out, so we can show up at a gig and we don't even really need to communicate about what we're going to play, because we just know how the show is going to go. But I also do a lot of gigs where I don't know the bands, and I'm often in situations where I might get a phone call on a Wednesday and someone will say, okay, can you come to this place on Friday, play these 25 songs, and I might never have met that band before. And the first time I meet them is when we're setting up for the show, and it's the same thing. You're using the same skill set. I'm not only listening to these guys thinking, right, these guys know each other, how are they playing and how can I adapt to what they're doing, but also I'm thinking, well, what can I take from this? What are these guys doing that I'm not doing? And I'm always listening and kind of thinking, how do I fit in with the dynamic of this? So yeah, you know, to reiterate the point again, if you can sit down with other players, do it. Absolutely do it. For 5 minutes or 5 hours, if you get the chance to sit down in a room with another guitar player, even if it's just a talk, I cannot recommend it more. It's just such a good thing to do. So yeah, do that. So yeah, it's a fun thing though. Playing with musicians is fun. It's just nice as well to make music with people. There's just something really pleasing about, you know, jamming a riff with the drummer. It's just a really fun thing. But yeah, I would definitely be interested to find out if anyone else out there has done anything similar there. If you've played or learned with other musicians, I'd love to hear your experiences on that as well. So yeah, plenty of good information there. Thank you, Jared, for your input as well, because that's very good to know, because like I said, Jared is a friend of mine and he comes from a very similar background to me. We both kind of come up playing gigs a lot and traveling the country and, you know, doing all that kind of stuff. So yeah, like playing with musicians is kind of a central part in what we do, but I think it's a central part in anyone's learning. I think it's such a beneficial thing for people to do. The only downside to playing with musicians, the possibility of you wanting more gear after trying or hearing theirs. There's two downsides to playing with other musicians. One is if the other guitar player has a nicer pedal board than you. That's always a big downside. The second downside is, from a controversial opinion, a lot of musicians are very, very hard to work with. Now, I know I've been told I'm hard to work with in the past, and I don't know, Jared, you may have had the same thing. Musicians, we like to, I don't want to use the term ego, but when you have a group of musicians with strong opinions about something, it can cause friction. So that's the downside to the band dynamic, is there's always the chance that, you know, people might bicker or fight or whatever, you know, it's a possibility. But yeah, the other downside though is gear. You might have the best rig that you could think of, and then the other guitar player will show up with a pedal that you've been, you know, looking for years, and all of a sudden your rig isn't as good. You took that bullet for me, but yes, some musicians can be interesting. They can. Interesting is a good word. I've worked with my fair share of interesting musicians. Sometimes you just got to get on with it, and you know, if you're a professional musician, sometimes you are put into situations where you may not see eye to eye with the musicians you're working with, but you just kind of have to grit your teeth and get on with it. I've done plenty of gigs where in the back of my mind I've just thought, I can't wait for this to be over so I can remove myself from this situation, but you can't let that impact your performance as well. So there's a real balancing act to it, I think, where you still have to be professional and you still have to enjoy it, and you still have to, you know, convey that you're enjoying it to the audience as well. It's not just about the situation as such. Everyone's got to be happy that, you know, the show's going on, but in the back of your mind you could still be thinking, I don't really want to be in this bubble right now. So yeah, interesting is a very, very good word. I like that choice of word. Maybe that'll be the topic of a future live stream. Maybe we'll maybe in the future we'll explore interesting situations we've been in as musicians, because we've all been in some. The Jess, gotta go, but have a good night. Thank you for sticking around, always good to see you, and yeah, enjoy the rest of your night as well. No different from any other job really, there's always someone we may not get on with at the office. Absolutely. Absolutely 100%. The only difference is it's a lot more fun to be in that office. Even when you're surrounded by people you may not like, you have to look at the office and say, this is still quite a fun office to work in. So we as musicians are really easy to complain about things as well. I think sometimes as a musician you forget how lucky you are to do what you do, and I think it's really easy to be negative about things that are really trivial, like, I don't like this guy. You might not like him, but you're still playing a gig to earn a living. So yeah, I think there's like I said, there's a balancing act. It's a huge balancing act, and you just have to do the best you can. But yeah, thank you guys for hanging around. That was a lot of fun. I think we're at the end of the stream now, so yeah, I'm going to let you guys go and enjoy the rest of your night. It's getting quite late here, so yeah, I think we'll call time there. But yeah, so Tysco demos, 4 pedals and an interface, including that crazy delay. Those will be coming up on the channel very soon. I have a demo going up of this very, very soon, if my autofocus is going to work. The Alchemy Overdrive from Red 7. I literally shot the demo for this today. I've been using this on the stream for the last couple of weeks. This is an insanely good overdrive pedal from my friends over in Italy at Red 7 Amplification. This demo will be going up, I mean, I'm literally just finishing up the editing, probably go live hopefully before I go to the guitar show on the weekend. Yeah, really great. I'm looking forward to that one. And yeah, plenty more cool stuff coming as always. So yeah, thank you guys for sticking around, hanging out as usual on a Wednesday night. I'll see you guys next Wednesday. And obviously, as always, if there's anything you want to talk about in the streams, comments below. You can reach out to me on socials as well. And as always, there's some links down below in the description where you guys can support the stream. And as Holzer rightly said, don't forget to give it a thumbs up, because I'm going to do that myself, because the thumbs up tells the YouTube algorithm that you liked it, and it actually helps recommend the content to other people as well, and it really helps me out as well. So at the minimum, hit that thumbs up, because that does make a huge difference to how far the videos get reach. That's the same for any video. If you guys ever watch any videos, give it a thumbs up, because it just helps that, you know, helps to push that video that little bit further. But yes, as always, links in the description. You can check some stuff out down there, click a few things, and if you want to support the channel, there's some ways to do that down there. And I will see you guys next week at the same time. Enjoy the rest of your week.